Today, we're diving into a legal battle that's taking aim at the very core of America's family court system. It's a fight started by one father, and his lawsuit makes a shocking claim that the system we believe is there to protect families has actually become a machine that profits from tearing them apart. To really get what this is all about, we're going to break down his personal story, the huge systemic problems he's pointing to, and the powerful legal arguments he's using to fight back. Let's get right into it. You know, to really understand this constitutional challenge, we can't start with legal books. We have to start right here, with the very personal crisis that kicked this whole thing off. This is from a letter Timothy DeHara wrote to his children. It's the voice of a father who isn't just fighting a system, he's fighting to get back to his kids. And his story, well, it's the key to understanding everything. So, what is the immediate, urgent crisis that pushed this all to the breaking point? Well, according to Timothy's court filings, what his children are going through isn't just a tough situation, it is quite literally a father's worst nightmare. Okay, so the first major bombshell in the emergency filing is this. The children's mother has allegedly fled the state of Colorado. The lawsuit says this isn't just some custody disagreement. It's a direct violation of her probation for domestic violence conviction against their father. That would make her a fugitive from justice, with the children in tow. And it gets worse. After the family's vehicle was found, the court filings detail what was inside, and it's just awful. They describe overpowering smells, cat feces, and trash, which the lawsuit claims was evidence that the children were homeless and living in completely unsanitary and unsafe conditions. So let's put this all together. According to the legal filings, you have children with a fugitive who have been living out of a car. I mean, that is the very definition of child endangerment. Their well-being is in immediate danger. And yet, despite filing emergency motions for the court to step in, he claims he got no help. And that alleged inaction, that's what turns a personal tragedy into an indictment of the entire system. So how does one family's devastating crisis turn into a federal lawsuit? Well, the legal challenge argues that this story, as tragic as it is not some isolated case. It's a symptom of a much bigger problem that the lawsuit calls the family law machine. A huge piece of this machine is something legal experts call hidden foster care. A Stanford Law Review article breaks it down as a kind of shadow system, where state agencies pressure parents to give up their kids without a lawyer, without a court order, without any of their rights being protected. It's basically a way for the state to move kids around while completely bypassing all the legal safeguards of the real foster care system, often because there's money involved. And those financial incentives, they're incredibly powerful. Professor Patrick Parkinson calls it a moral hazard. See, the way child support often works, it's calculated based on how many nights a child spends with each parent. This creates what he calls perverse incentives. A parent can actually be financially rewarded for pushing the other parent out of the picture. Less time for one parent means more money for the other. The child's best interest gets put in direct conflict with someone's bank account. And this leads us to the results. Even though our laws have been gender neutral for decades, this data shows a pretty jaw-dropping disparity in who gets custody. Nationally, mothers get primary custody the vast majority of the time. The lawsuit argues that this isn't a coincidence. It's proof of a deep systemic bias, a system that, in reality, is anything but neutral. Okay, so this brings us to the very heart of the legal argument. Timothy's fight isn't just that he disagrees with a judge's decision. It's a direct challenge to the constitutionality of the system itself. He's saying it's unconstitutional by its very design. And you know what? The Supreme Court has been incredibly clear about this. The right of a parent to raise their own child isn't just some small thing. It's a fundamental liberty interest. It's one of the oldest and most sacred rights in our country's history. That means if the government wants to interfere, it has to have an overwhelmingly good reason, the highest level of legal proof there is. So how are these fundamental rights just brushed aside? Well, the lawsuit claims it happens through something called the systemic funnel. It starts with domestic violence proceedings where restraining orders can be issued with very little evidence. Then, no-fault divorce breaks a legal contract, trapping one person against their will. After that, this vague best interest of the child standard lets a judge's personal opinion override a parent's rights. And finally, the state creates these endless financial obligations, building a whole system of revenue and control. Each step just funnels parents deeper and deeper into a system that strips their rights away. Now, we're getting to the most audacious part of this whole challenge. The lawsuit isn't just saying the system is broken or flawed. It's alleging that this is a corrupt and maybe even criminal enterprise.
This is the question that changes everything. Are we just looking at a system that's failing because of bad policies and bureaucracy? Or, as the lawsuit alleges, is this intentional? Is this an organized, corrupt system that's been designed for profit?
To prove that it's an enterprise, the lawsuit uses the RICO Act. Yeah, that's the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, the same law they used to go after the mob. It alleges a clear pattern of federal crimes. Things like mail and wire fraud by using official-looking court notices to hide the real money-making motives. Extortion by threatening parents with losing their kids or even jail to force them to pay. Obstruction of justice through biased courts. And even money laundering by cycling all that money back into the state to keep the whole machine running.
So, what's the motive for all this alleged corruption? The lawsuit points a finger directly at federal funding, specifically a program called Title 4D. And here's a crazy part. When a state does things to actually protect a family and enforce due process, it gets less federal money. But when it maximizes divorces, conflict, and child support collections, it gets more funding. It's a direct financial incentive to break families apart, creating this huge conflict of interest right at the heart of the system.
This massive fight against a complex system, it all comes back to why it matters in the first place, the very real and devastating impact it has on children and families. And this is the part where the mission becomes a call to action for every single one of us.
You know, the consequences of this system aren't just numbers on a page. They are real and they are catastrophic. Children in homes without their father are four times more likely to live in poverty. A system that marginalizes a fit, loving, and willing parent doesn't just hurt the parent, it does direct, lasting damage to the child. So the mission of this whole legal challenge is actually pretty simple, but it is incredibly profound. Restore fundamental constitutional rights to family court. It's about demanding accountability, it's about demanding transparency, and it's about making sure that the system designed to protect families no longer has a financial incentive to destroy them.
And so we end with this question, not just for Timothy, but for all of us. Will you help dismantle the machine? This is so much more than just one man's fight. This is a landmark case that could set a new precedent for families all over the country. Donating isn't just about funding a lawsuit. It's about investing in a movement to restore the constitutional promise of family and to make sure that no one else has to live through this kind of nightmare.